Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I'm going to take a look at the 2011 film Drive with Ryan Gosling. It has a 92% on the tomato meter certified fresh and a 79% on the audience score with 118,000 plus audience reviews. I will say first off that this movie deserves both of these scores. It is fresh. The critics find it so, and the audience says at 79%. It's close to 80%. I agree. It is what it is. It is a very good movie. It's a very deliberate movie. It is not an action adventure. It's not a car chase movie. It is almost like an art house type thing. It's very deliberate. Every single shot of this movie is done in a deliberate fashion. Lots of symbolism, lots of meaning, lots of layers to the meaning. It's done very deliberately. Nothing here is out of place or accidental. It's very well done. The music is perfect. The visuals are perfect. This movie is, it should actually have a higher audience score. But the problem is a lot of people seem to think this is like Baby Driver with Jamie Foxx or the old, the old film from the late 70s that's got a similar name. They're expecting an action movie, where there's a wheelman. Maybe he works for the mob and he's going on mission, so to speak. Well, yeah, that has this in the plot of it, but that's not what type of movie this is. So what I want to do with this episode of Rotten Review is I want to take a look at the stark contrast between, what the film deserves for what it is and what the audience might think, what they were expecting, what the audience was expecting in this film. And I think we're going to find that in the Rotten Reviews. And I'm looking forward to finding out how bad people thought this was because they expected an action car chase movie, and instead they got, a very deliberate psychological character study, and it has a very effective, strong message. This movie, basically, to boil it down really simple, the main character, this character who's the driver, he wants to be a good guy. He's not, but he wants to be, yet he doesn't know how to be, and he goes through the movie deciding that he can go through take superficial actions to make himself the good guy, to make him into a good guy type of character. Maybe to redeem himself on some level, but then he fails utterly and he comes to realize that he's not capable of being the good guy. He never was. He accepts that he's not the good guy, and he finishes the film doing something quite heroic, but yet not for the reasons of being good guy. He does it because he accepts that he's the bad guy, and it doesn't have a happy ending or a bad ending. It has a message type ending, and the message is sometimes, leopards can't change their spots. But a leopard's not an animal that would realize good and bad and that what spots are. In this case, we're talking about a human, and humans can realize that yes, they are actually bad guys, and they can accept this in the end. And this is very much a message film. You can see one or two possible messages layered into this, but let's look at the audience reviews and let's take a look at what people that were expecting an actual action film like a Baby Driver got out of this, and it should be very enlightening. Here's one from 4 days ago. We're in December of 2019, so this is very relevant. And before I start, let's just say the reason why this film is very relevant today is because it is right out there on Netflix, pushed out to you. If you look for any kind of action movie, if you look for any kind of car movie, even if you look for a drama of some type, this movie keeps coming up in the Netflix recommendations. And so eventually you're going to click on it to find out if it's good. Now, a lot of people are going to click on it thinking that it is a, Baby Driver type movie, and this is going to be the result. That's what I'm going to get to. 1 star. Apparently long periods of silence, experimental eerie music, and over-the-top violence bolsters a superficial movie to an art house wonder. How this movie ever ended up with an even marginally good tomato reading is beyond me, and how it ultimately ended up with a 92% score is nothing more than a modern day example of the emperor who had no clothes. If this had been the first movie I had seen with Ryan Gosling in it, I would have made sure it would be my last. Yeah, they thought they were going to get an action car chase type of movie, another Gone in 60 Seconds. Unfortunately, that's not what they got. Now, this might be due to mismarketing on some level, maybe a little bit, but I doubt it because I don't recall seeing any trailers of this that promised Baby Driver. There's very little car action in this. There is a little bit, but just enough to get the point across, no more. And yeah, this is the exact type of review I expect to see a lot of, and I 100% understand why they're giving these reviews, and I just want to do a highlight of that. Now, as far as being a superficial art house movie that Ryan Gosling is in, and you know this might turn you off from Ryan Gosling, I will firmly put that film as a different film, and that film would be called The First Man. Now, that is a film that doesn't mismarket itself. It's a film about Neil Armstrong and the Apollo program, his involvement with the Apollo program to go to the moon in 1969. And that movie, even taking it for what it is very disappointing, boring, and very depressing. And, you know, Ryan Gosling does a job of showing you a very unlikable Neil Armstrong, one you can't really sympathize with. I find that that's the appropriate movie to criticize that has Ryan Gosling and that you feel like you need to give him 1 star, give it to him for that. This is not that film. This film is actually very effective for what it tries to be. It's very well done, very deliberate, very calculated. When you see it for that, this film is like a pinnacle of filmmaking, but it is not an action movie whatsoever. 4 stars 4 days ago. Art house screams from this picture with a unique blend of violence and visuals. Gosling maneuvers well in the stylishly brought to life action thriller. I disagree with that. Yes, 4 stars. I'll give it 4 stars. I'll give this movie 4 stars for what it is. But saying that this is some kind of action thriller, this is not an action thriller of any type. So this reviewer, he's got the stars right, but he's still way out to lunch. Let's get that part straight. And you know, I'm not going to read 5 and 4 star reviews. I want to just read the rotten ones to drive home the point that this film is probably very misunderstood. Here's 1 half-star review from November 25th, 2019. I seriously thought driver Ryan Gosling had Asperger's in this film. It's like the director thought he was creating some dramatic masterpiece, but when you put it all together, it's one long, awkward, empty dialogue after another. The plot jumps all over the place in a feeble attempt at character development. Ryan is a creepy, awkward nobody who becomes weirdly attached to his neighbor he knows nothing about and proceeds to third wheel her relationship with her husband. Yeah, but they're, again, like I said, they're taking the wrong thing out of this movie. But, you know, I'll just leave the, you know, they did mention the neighbor and the husband. I'll just say that, you know, I didn't appreciate Oscar Isaac in a lot of the stuff he's been in. He was Apocalypse and X-Men Apocalypse. And I thought it was stupid and over the top dumb the way he did it, his acting performance in it. And I thought that his performance in Star Wars, you know, the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi was also very forgettable, and there's nothing special about that. But I think Oscar Isaac actually does a very good job playing his character in this movie. It's not a big role, it's not a big action thing, but he does a very I mean, I wouldn't even know that was Oscar Isaac. I didn't even recognize that as him until I had watched him quite a bit in this film. He plays his character very well in this. Yeah, I say congratulations to him. He's not the main driver of the movie, but his performance, his portrayal of what he did in this movie, it's very effective. I didn't see Oscar Isaac. I saw his criminal character. Very well done. 1/2 star from November 25th, 2019. Great imagery and exceptional soundtrack. That's the upside. The downside, very underwhelming storyline, lacking twist and creativity, predictable plot, and the worst part, the dialogue is extremely unrealistic and dull, extremely long pauses in between talking during conversations, in an effort to make it more dramatic, just comes off as a lazy attempt to pad running time that takes away from getting to know personalities of characters. Wish I could get my 2 hours back. Well, okay, I kind of surface level agree. If you mean Ryan Gosling's dialogue, it's almost unnatural the way his very shallow responses to people, and the people don't seem to take him as being very odd that he's taking a long time to respond to them. It works though because it's like showing you what Ryan Gosling's character thinks of himself. Um, it wants you to feel that it's weird and off-putting, and at the same time, the way the characters don't find that weird. I mean, he's actually in the car with his neighbor. They're together in the car, and they don't seem to say a whole lot to each other, even though they act like they've had a lot of conversations and they have this meaningful relationship with each other. It's very strange the way you don't actually get any speaking between them. And if you just look at it at the surface level, it's very weird and you're just scratching your head. But actually, when you look at what the film's trying to do, it works perfectly, and it shows you just how weird this guy is, how he's not, despite the fact that he thinks he can do superficial things to become a good guy, he can't and he never could, and it takes him a long time to realize that he's been the bad guy the whole time and that he can accept himself as being the bad guy. And that's what this is meant to show. But in any case, let's move on to further really rotten reviews just to highlight the disconnect here. 1 star from November 24th, 2019. Terrible movie. I really don't understand why it got good reviews. Yeah, I understand why you say that. Let's move down 0.5 star, November 4th, 2019. I thought this was an awful, most boring, pretentious film. I know I am in the minority. This film is pretending to be smart when it comes across as stuck up. Yeah, if you don't get it, you think that it's just surface level BS, but no, it's not. There are movies I think that, but this isn't one of them. 1.5 stars, October 15th, 2019. I'm losing my respect for a lot of movie critics. I watched Drive after seeing the 90th percentile tomato meter ratings and reading a dozen gushing, obsequious reviews about its brilliant acting, cinematography, and atmosphere. I was not rewarded. Drive is basically a grade B slasher movie pretending to be an art house film. It starts out with an intriguing car chase and a potential developing romance, but in the second half it degenerates into a repulsive gore fest that undermines any and all viewer credibility. Yeah, there's one scene in the elevator where it turns into gore, and that's meant to show the breaking point that this character is in no way the good guy. And that's at the point he even realizes, hey, I'm not the good guy, and it's meant to be like that. Most of it isn't over the top gore, though. It's very well done. It's very deliberate. It's very calculated. There's nothing accidental about this. Every scene of this movie is very calculated in every regard. And if you think about it that way, it's nearly perfect. There's no wasted running time. Everything works the way it's supposed to. But if you're expecting an action movie with the stereotypical 3-act structure and the climax and the good guy wins or doesn't, you're not going to get that, and this is going to seem very strange to you. 1 star. I'm certain that my PTSD as a returning Iraqi vet didn't help, but all I can remember are an autistic character with zero emotion, a woman's head blown apart by a shotgun, and Gosling stomping on a man's head in an elevator until you can hear crunching sounds of the skull and facial bones. Lurid movie with no redeeming qualities, especially since Gosling goes on to show us great humor and superb acting physical humor in movies such as Nice Guys with Russell Crowe. I haven't actually seen Nice Guys. But no, again, they're expecting something else, and they're expecting like Baby Driver, and they're not going to get that. 1.5 star, September 23rd. Disappointing. Gosling is unable to pull off the quiet, brooding, ultra-tough guy persona. Lots of long, awkward pauses, and the end is just, well, disappointing. Should have given this one a miss. Yeah. He isn't 100% believable as, an action hero tough guy in this, but he doesn't need to be. Nobody else, the bad guys, the mobsters in this movie, nobody else in this that has physical action, that does physical things against him, are also, none of them are also super powerful or badasses, really. They're just bad characters. They're bad guys. Um, there's nothing that requires Ryan Gosling to be some kind of action hero in this. That's not what's going on. So I disagree. This isn't that type of movie. But look at all the 4 and 5-star reviews. Let's just pick one and see what it says. 5-star, August 22nd, 2019. Nicholas Winding Refn has easily become one of my favorite directors, and with Drive, he proves once again why he is just phenomenal. Nicholas develops and gives the plot a smooth and natural flow, making it feel really organic and authentic, while its cast also helps enhance it with great performances that undoubtedly convey their feelings to the audience, even when they're just staring at each other in complete silence, something that also helped the characters feel even more genuine. Yeah, they bring up something here. Uh, Even in scenes where it's unnatural that they don't speak a lot, uh, it works very well. You get the whole idea. It's very visual. You get exactly the intended effect out of it, even without any words. You get the actual effect that a lot of words would have been traditionally used to give you. So it's completely good. It completely works. It's just that it's not an action adventure. It's not a car chase movie. You're not going to get a lot of one-liners and dialogue, but everything visually works and gives you everything that all that dialogue would have had to give you if they had put all that dialogue in there. But yet, in this 1 hour and 40 minutes, it doesn't feel long. That's the other tell that this movie is not rotten, is that it has a 1 hour and 40-minute runtime, and it did not feel long to me at all. In fact, it actually felt a little short to me. So that tells me everything worked fantastically, despite, feeling weird and off-putting at times with not enough dialogue and the delivery of the dialogue. If it were rotten, how come it felt like I needed more? How come it felt too short? No, this works very well. 1 hour, 40 minutes, and this feels almost too short. So that tells me it worked. 1.5 star, May 21st, 2019. Dark, pointless, and a waste of perfectly good movie night. Well, if you're looking for Baby Driver, then yeah, or that Driver movie with who was it from the late 70s? Ryan O'Neal. Yeah, that's action. That's what you were looking for. That's not what this is. It's not a remake of that, despite what you might have thought when you saw this on Netflix. It's not a remake of the Ryan O'Neal Driver movie. 3 stars, February 20th, 2019. Describing it as art house fits. A bit too quiet and violent, though. Yeah, it's if you can see it for what it is, it's still a 3-star movie. But if you're thinking it's a remake of like the Ryan O'Neal '79 Driver movie, oh wow, you're going to be disappointed. 1 star, February 9th, 2019. I don't get these other reviews. That was one of the most boring and pointless movies I've seen. I'm not sure how they got these fairly high-grade actors to sign on, but none of it made any sense to me. I had no empathy for the main character, and it made no sense that he would have had those kind of feelings for the girl or her son. The violence was gratuitous and unnecessary, and the plot very thin. Even the driving scenes were boring and unrealistic. Don't bother with this one. You'll want your time back. Yeah, you're not supposed to feel empathy for the main character. You're supposed to understand what motivates him, that he's trying to make himself into a good guy, but all along the way you see that he just thinks being a good guy, he can become one by doing these superficial things with the neighbor because he wants that normal life. He got a taste of what normalcy is with the neighbor, and her son. And he thinks he can somehow do these surface level things, and by using them in a way, he can become a good guy, a hero. But then he realizes, no, he's not a hero. He never was. He has a complete misunderstanding about what a hero is. And he accepts that he's not the hero, that he's the bad guy. And it's a story about that. And that's not your traditional action movie, certainly. And it's going to make you leave a 1-star review because you didn't get that traditional hero's journey type of movie. This is like the bad guy wanting to be a hero and then finding out he can't be. That's the journey you got out of this, not the standard hero's journey. 1.5 stars, January 4th, 2019. Was curious about this one for a while. What a letdown. The slowest snail interactions, the bland plotline, the more than boring action sequences. The RBF of Gosling got on my nerves after 10 minutes of this 3 hours of meaningless, pointless, and bland movie. I seriously don't understand why it's so highly praised. I guess that most people think of Gosling as a sex god and that he can get away with anything, but man, what a snooze fest. Yeah, you missed the point completely. But I see that you sat through the whole thing. It wasn't 3 hours, but I see that you sat through it all because, yeah, for some reason you did, right? And so think about it a little more, watch it again. Maybe you'll find out that there was a reason you actually watched the whole thing because it was very deliberately well done. Um, let's move on and find some more rotten ones here. You know, we're just overwhelmed with 5 and 4 star ones, clearly. 1 star, December 16th, 2018. This is the favorite film of so many men I know. Honestly, for me, it was meh. I wasn't drawn in and found it boring. Well, I disagree. I don't think that most people I know would consider this their favorite film by any stretch. This is certainly not my favorite film, but for what it was trying to do, it worked flawlessly. Um, it didn't offend me, but it's certainly not my favorite film. I much rather prefer the 1979 Ryan O'Neal Driver hitman type movie. I prefer that, but recognizing this movie for what it is, I completely understand why it's got the high ratings. That's why I'm here. Let's move down. November 10th, 2018. 1.5 stars. This film was very bad. No, it's no action film, is it? Let's move on. Let's see. Wow, wow. 5 stars, 5 stars, all the way down. You know, I'm surprised it hasn't been actually pulled off Netflix, in the streaming wars that we're currently undergoing. But it's really pushed hard on Netflix, and that's why you see all these very recent reviews on it. 0.5 star, June 26, 2018. Not a Ryan Gosling fan. He plays himself in every role with zero emotion and the same look on his face. Well, that's more accurate if you've watched his work in The First Man. Yeah, I found that a very bad way to show Neil Armstrong and Neil Armstrong's, journey to the moon. Very depressing too. If the point was to show Neil Armstrong as like an unlikable type person, maybe he was, but wow, it was such a depressing film. This one, on the other hand, this is a fictional character, and you get the point of what he's doing, and this one is very well done. 0.5 star, May 16th of 2018. Boring, pointless, and difficult to get into. I suffered through this disaster thinking that the terrible music might stop or that the plot would pick up. I wanted to like this movie, I really did, but it's not good. Well, this guy didn't even like the music. I thought the movie was good, even from an action point of view. If this had been a remake of the Ryan O'Neal movie from '79, the music would have worked. So I didn't find the music bad at all. I liked the music, and the music would have worked in an action movie too. But in any case, 2.5 stars, March 2018. I liked this movie a lot more when it first came out. Upon multiple viewings, it's just okay. Maybe I was edgier 6 to 7 years ago. Well, that's an interesting review because you're saying that you've seen this multiple times. So you're actually saying this is a 5 star movie, but you're only giving it 2.5 stars. Now, what kind of 2.5 star movie does somebody watch multiple times over several years and then say that it was just okay? That does not make any sense. So I'm just going to say that you actually think this is a 5 star review and move on. 0.5 star, March 11th, 2018. D minus, horrible director. I don't usually notice or get bothered by the artsy-fartsy camera angles or lighting, but holy crap, this movie was horribly directed. Bad music, inappropriate scenes that didn't fit the pace of the movie, scenes that dragged on for minutes long just staring at someone's face. Very painful to watch, super slow, POS movie. Yeah, it's not an action fest. It's not Gone in 60 Seconds, unfortunately for you. 2 stars, February 26, 2018. Great soundtrack, but the film itself is a boilerplate, predictable crime story. I kept waiting for there to be a twist, a surprise, or big reveal, or even just something clever. Alas, the movie drove straight toward its destination. One thing that annoyed me, why were all the killings done by gruesome, gory stabbings and head kicking, particularly for the instances of execution? It made no sense that they wouldn't just shoot them. The guy slices the guy's arteries and then his suit is spotless in the next scene. Yeah, because they're trying to show you just what kind of people, what kind of characters we're dealing with here. Uh, if you shoot somebody, it's nowhere near as emotional as if you do it with a blade or you do it with your boot. There's just no question about that. The movie's far more effective showing people doing these killings in brutal ways because it shows you that they're real people, but they're brutally real people and they're brutal bad guys. And even the protagonist of this story is no good guy. And you realize it about the same time that he does, and he learns to accept it. And that's what some of that gore is really about. Let's move on. Oh, wow. Too many 4 and 5 stars there. Looking for a bad one. Aha. January 5th, 2018. 1 star. Beside Gosling, I don't get the fascination for these films, honestly. Yeah, because you don't get action here, so it's right over your head. Half a star. December 22nd, 2017. I never thought it can be disappointed with a film, but this proved me wrong. The actors are amazing, but the dialogue and plot are very poor. Well, there's somebody that could probably enjoy this on a second or third viewing, but a lot of it went over their head still. Let's move down. Next page. We're way into this thing to find bad reviews. Several pages, probably a dozen pages by now. 1 star, September 5th, 2017. What? 93% on the critics? The movie was horrible. Stop smoking the crystal meth. Yeah, because it's not an action movie. You're not going to get hardly any action, just enough to show you that it exists, that it's in the real world, but it quickly, within the first 10 minutes, you know this isn't an action movie at all. Half a star, June 30th, 2017. So disappointed. No redeeming qualities, even with Ryan Gosling. The soundtrack was unbearably awful. I'm going to forget about this movie and pretend I never saw it. Yep, no action movie. Half a star, June 30th, 2017. Probably watched the shittiest film I've ever witnessed. 3 people I watched it with were all equally gobsmacked on how bad this film is compared to what the ratings say. The reviews are paid lies on a huge scale, so I needed to warn you. Watch it and find out for yourself if you wish. Just don't waste a hard-earned Friday or Saturday night on this badly produced, badly written film. The first 5 minutes are good. Unfortunately, it's a steep downhill from there all the way to the end. Cringeworthy in many places. Yeah, because it's not that the critics were paid off. The critics were looking at this from the point of view of filmmaking as a work of art and from the effectiveness of telling a story. And it was very effective, very efficient, and very well done in all those categories. But they weren't grading it on being an entertaining action movie like you are with the half a star. That's what's going on here. 2 stars, June 26th, 2017. Oh my God, this movie is nothing but dramatic pauses other than it is okay. Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic pauses, but they're more than pauses. In an action movie, they would be considered dramatic pauses, but this isn't an action movie. 2 stars, June 18th, 2017. Yes, this movie was suspenseful in some parts, but overall it lacked a good flow and dialogue. Given the high ratings by critics and even a good number of viewers, it was quite disappointing. Want to see a good action film about the British mob with a plot? Go watch Layer Cake, starring Daniel Craig, James Bond. So much better. Overall, grade C+. Well, I'll agree with this reviewer. You need to watch a different movie if you're looking for a mob movie or an action movie or a car chase movie. This is not the one to watch. But that doesn't make it bad. It's just not your thing, and you thought you were going to find a different type of movie here. So let's move on. We're going to check one more page just to see. And we have half a star, April 16th, 2017. Awful, no point with weak plot and unnecessary violence, just weird. It is weird, I'll give it that, but no point. Oh, there was a big point to this. Everything in this, including the jacket the character wore, was very symbolic. It was deliberately a point. It was not that hard to figure out. but this was not an action movie. So, like, I think I've made my point. People that expected this to be a remake of a '79 Drive film with Ryan O'Neal, yeah, they would find this horribly rotten, but that's not what this is. Despite the similar name, despite maybe any marketing that might have misled people. No, no, no. This is straight up a very deliberate character study type movie. It uses visuals in place of dialogue. It does this very well. It gets the point across. And it is something that the critics just love to deconstruct and talk about. And sometimes I like to do that too, but only when I know what the film is going into it. If I had gone into it being convinced by somebody that this was an action car movie, I would have been very disappointed. But I'm going to say don't watch this movie unless you're looking for something to really think about and get more than one layer from. Do not watch this as an action film. Do not watch this for a car chase. Do not watch this to see some kind of traditional hero's journey, because you're not going to get it. And I will see you again on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.